everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today we're going to be breaking down the Qredo Roadmap and exploring what's in store for the network. The team has been working super hard to enhance the platform and provide users with an even better experience. Today we have Gabe with us, Chief Product Officer, to help break down and summarize each new tool and feature and how it improves Qredo. We are going to go through each aspect. You can almost think of this like speed dating, but instead of people, we are going to be spending a little time with each feature and maybe take one home at the end of the night. Ha 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 ha. Pause for laugh. Before we get started, Gabe, can you give us a quick introduction of yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Gabe. I run the product organization here at Qredo, so that's everything to do with what we build, the design of what we build, the user experience, and the documentation of what we build. And I'm really excited about the product roadmap because, as you can imagine, every now and then we get to publish sort of our plans, sort of the stuff we're working on, and I like the idea of speed dating with our features. I think it's I want to take them all home, though.
Awesome. Thanks, Gabe. Yeah, we're really excited, and the community's been really excited about the roadmap as well. So it's going to be great to tick off each thing as we go through the year. And before we dive into the roadmap, can you also just give us a little bit of a rundown of what the team has been doing in the months leading up to this and why it is so important for the future of Qredo?
Yes. So we try to be as public and transparent as possible. But if you want a bit of a summary, if you haven't followed or pay attention in the past, few quarters, we've been really hard at work at sort of focusing on what's under the hood, making sure the network is faster, more stable. We moved all of our operation into cloud trusted execution environments, which is essentially a way of running software in a much more secure and scalable fashion. And this has been really important and part of our strategy to ensure that as the network keeps opening up, more and more users and validators can be running the software that operates on the network. We've done a lot of upgrades also on our MPC. Sort of this is our secret sauce when it comes to Qredo. And the last upgrade has been staggering if you're a geek like me when it comes to numbers and latency, where we almost reach a 4x in terms of reduction on latency. And we've got a little bit more in store for the rest of the year. So we're very optimistic when it comes to just the raw performance of the protocol itself. But then there is a second phase to it, which is the one you look and touch and feel every day once you use the product, which is the platform. And that's probably where we're going to spend a lot of our time on the roadmap.
Awesome. Thanks, Gabe. And yeah, the team's been working super hard. I think 9 months and rewriting every word, every line of code. So it was a big job, and kudos to you guys for doing all that. Okay, so without further ado, let's jump into the questions in the roadmap. So starting at question 1. So one of the highlights of the upcoming release is the new portfolio view, which will allow users to view balances and their evolution across all their holdings in custody. Can you give some more detail on this feature and what it means for our users?
Yes. So if you've been a user of Qredo before, or if you can imagine an institution being a user of Qredo, you can also imagine how important it is to have the data, real-time data, post-trade data, and essentially a more data-rich experience around your operation from within custody. And what Portfolio View allows us to do is essentially gives us, the ability to give you all of the information you need to know exactly any position you have outstanding, position you have already taken, and sort of build sort of the foundation of a reporting functionality that we're working on that ultimately will give users of Qredo their one stop for everything they need to know about transaction. They reached finality with us, right? Because ultimately we're the signature of every transaction. We are on any whether you're moving money from exchanges and back to custody or interacting with DeFi, everything eventually touches your custody solution. And it's incredibly important. We heard from our customers to have as much information as possible to be able to manage their portfolio from within Qredo.
Awesome. That's a great feature to add. Cool. So moving on to question 2. So our new workplace feature supplies a straightforward way to manage digital assets and users, making it easy for small to large organizations to manage their holdings. What details can you provide, and how will this help our users?
Yes, so workspace is it's an interesting feature. If you've ever used enterprise software before, what typically happens is you have you have to manage an organization that might have dozens to 100 to 1,000 of individuals within it, and you want to be able to segment who can do what, which groups do what. And the same is true with custody, right? Particularly if you're beyond 5 people, you have to start thinking about access control and what roles and permissions each participants have. But another use case we found on our few years in the market is that at times approvers, which are sort of the beating heart of a custodial policy within Qredo, are not always necessarily just employees, right? They could be participants of another company, they could be trustees, they could be general partners at a venture capital firm, or they could be, if you're talking more in an individual use case, it could be friends and families and so on. And the ability for users to easily manage members as they move into workspaces, manage multiple workspaces, just gives you the flexibility to organize almost like your digital life or your digital asset management strategy the way you want it. You could set up a workspace that manages all of the funds that you have in common with a few investors of yours. And within that, you manage who are the investor, what do they do? And you have this very neat box in which you can manage your assets within. But then that doesn't mean you cannot be part of many other workspaces. And ultimately, what makes Qredo unique is your keys, your identities, what you can carry across several workspaces. And you can be an approver in one and a workspace administrator on another. And that flexible model hopefully will lend itself to a lot of use cases down the line.
Okay, cool. So it's almost like you can have like your external and your external in each workplace. Almost kind of reminds me of how Slack, it allows you to have people outside of your organization join your channel and converse with them on projects. Yeah,
that's a great analogy. And similar to Slack, you can have several workspaces. Without hinting too much on the UI, you can toggle among them the same way Slack can. You can create channel with external, which is policy with external approvers. Yes, so very good analogy.
Awesome. Yeah, cool. That's really, really interesting feature. Excited to see that one in action. Cool. So diving into the next one. So next up, we have a new invite system and role-based access control, enabling users to invite new users to their workspace and permission them for optimal trading or custom setups. Can you share more on the invite and role-based access control?
Yes, this is very much tied to what we just discussed, and I think your Slack analogy is a good reference. In the same way, in Slack, you can easily manage members of your organization and then permission what they can and cannot do within Slack, and then maybe even permission what they can and cannot do within channels. What a role-based access control does is essentially allows you to do that. But in our terms, obviously, the permissions are specific to the custodial platform. And what we wanted to do is to create a model that was as flexible as our users wanted. And so as soon as you get your hands on the platform, you'll see there are some templates in place, such as traders and fund administrators and things of that sort. But ultimately, we want to make this permissioning model way more flexible, so that whatever specific niche sort of permissioning you want to use for your organization, you can implement it that way. And finally, to grow, to scale, you need to also scale the way in which you can bring users in. And so we've been working on a new invite mechanics, a new way of onboarding users in, a new onboarding journey once they're in, and just a way to get them more accustomed of using Qredo once you invite them. And workspace and invite system goes end to end. As we imagine users being participants on many workspaces, we want to make sure that we can grow as fast as your workspace needs.
Okay, cool. That makes sense. So it's almost within that workspace, you can then assign a role to that person where they have certain constraints on what they are allowed to do and not do. And the question here is, can people set up those role-based access on their own? So if I want to assign you, I can set specific controls within that title?
Yes. So the way it works is it's typically hierarchical. That means there are some administrative roles that you need to be very careful around handing out. But then you can administer the workspace, or you can administer a specific portfolio, or you can administer a specific investment vehicle. And each of those are important roles, but obviously they have a much smaller scale as you go down. And so each of those roles allows you to then assign other roles to other participants. If you're a workspace administrator, you can do pretty much anything. And it's important on any system to be able to bootstrap. Otherwise, if you're the first one that joins the system, how can you set up everything else? But as you move along and as you get more complex, you can really segment and segregate duties among your portfolio.
Very cool. So you can get very nitty and gritty with it then.
Yes.
Awesome. Thanks, Gabe. Okay, cool. Moving on. So notification and activity logs feature provides users with more live information and call to actions, both on a new notification system or as part of the per user audit log. Can you tell me more about this one?
Yes. It's quite exciting, and it's also good looking, in my personal opinion. I'm sure you'll hopefully get to agree with me once this comes out. But basically, the system compared to the app today has got way more complex, right? There are more events we wanna notify users for. We wanna call their attention for actions they might need to take, and we wanna make sure some of them belongs to the web application, some of them belong to the mobile application. And in the previous iteration of Qredo, we didn't have such an expressive language in which we can call your attention for. Say we needed you to review a request for an invite, for instance. We didn't have necessarily the language to tell you without doing something bespoke. Within the new Qredo, what we've done is we created this notification tray that allows us to have notifications that are directed to you that might be coming from any workspaces you're involved. So again, imagine yourself being in 3 different organizations as an approver. It's really hard to manage your actions among all of them, but it's still you among all of those organizations. So the notification center is sort of your center console for anything that requires your eyes on or your actions on it. And then when it comes to the activity logs, one of the key things that makes us who we are is obviously our obsession around security. And it boils, for us, security starts with keys, but every touch point the user has with the platform, with the protocol, it requires a lot of care and diligence. And one of the things that are very important in a security product like ours is knowing when a user authentication to the platform has been it seems right. So that might be, does it come from the right IP address? Is the timing matching? And the first line of defense is often the user can view their own activity and tell us if something is wrong, or tell their own workspace manager if something is wrong. And then it goes to someone that manages the full workspace, ensuring that they can know if an employee is supposed to be based in a country and an IP that isn't that country comes up. There's probably something worth looking into and taking remediating action on. So this is more, it's not as a fancy feature, but I find it very important, and it gives me the assurance that I'm in control of whoever accesses my platform. There's no one else that could have done it without me noticing.
Okay, awesome. So it's another line of defense, keeping our customers secure.
Yes.
Awesome. Cool. Okay, so let's move on. So our revamped asset vaults experience provides users with near instant transfers, cross-chain atomic swaps, and much more, making it easy to govern, manage, and move digital assets directly within custody. Can you tell us more about asset vaults?
Yes. So this is one of the core pillars of Qredo, right? So the 2 things we do well. Hopefully we do more than 2 things well, but the 2 core things that we do well is to manage keys and manage assets. Management of keys, and we'll go through it next, is around our Web3 wallets. Managing assets is around the way we can take custody of your assets, regardless of the key that manages it. And this is important because that means that your asset can then be portable within the network to the extent that you want to move it. You can aggregate it. You can do payments, use cases on top of it. You can do a lot of things because the asset has been somewhat decoupled from its origin address. Can be moved around the network, but the network is clever enough that on any block, we're ensuring that your holding and the reserves that are funding your holding, so what you deposited, are always in match. So we never have the issue of having to prove our reserves because we have a real-time block explorer for it. And the product that exposes this functionality is what we essentially renamed asset vaults. And an asset vault is essentially a specific asset that you decide to take custody over. It could be Bitcoin, it could be Qredo, USDC. And any deposit you make to that asset vault accrues your balance. And anything you want to do with that balance is really up to you. You can make atomic swaps, which is sort of our popular way of making instant transfers across the platform. And because those, as I mentioned before, we decouple the origin from the representation of the asset, you can make swaps within, and on any other currency that the network supports. So you can trade assets that come from Solana to Bitcoin, for instance, or you can do more fancy stuff in the future, such as basket of securities that matches other basket of security. And the atomic swap, if you're not familiar with the lingo, sounds very fancy, but it essentially is an important property of any transaction. It means that it either succeeds or it fails. There's no scenario in which you're going to give away your asset and not getting anything in return, because the transaction is done atomically. And asset vaults is an exciting vertical for us because we have a bunch of new things in store, and we'll get maybe to it at a later stage on how we can take this concept forward. But it's very important for the future of Qredo, because a lot of service provider, they want to manage digital asset for the organization, but they want to simply abstract the complexity that comes with managing keys and funding gas and all of those things. Can simply use this product and the API that powers it to offer digital asset in their business.
Awesome, thanks, Gabe. Okay, so we're going to dive into Web3 wallets now. So our new Web3 wallets, allowing anyone to interact with EVM chains from custody with the support of 3 core extensions at launch: MetaMask Institutional, Wallet Connect, and Web3 APIs. Can you tell us more about this and how it benefits our users?
Yes. This is one of our most popular product. And as I mentioned before, the 2 core things we do well is managing keys and managing assets. This falls in the managing key category. Whenever you're utilizing a web extension as your wallet, or any sort of transaction generation software that could be on your own your own trading platform or any other wallet-like solution. What you're essentially doing, you're composing a transaction and then asking something or someone to sign it, and then broadcast it back into the network. What Qredo comes in is the protocol that allows you to govern the process of securing the signature of that transaction. And the beauty of it is we're wallet agnostic, right? So what we do is we receive a transaction request. We know how to talk the language of the network in which you're broadcasting that transaction, and we know how to program how you'd want the governance around your keys to be managed. So we can go through all of those steps and give you back the transaction signed to your chosen wallet. And as you mentioned, at launch we have 3 launching extension: Consensus, MetaMask Institutional. We've got Wallet Connect. And we got our own Web3 API, so the ability for you to generate transaction requests yourself and send them through it. As we progress, the Web3 wallet portfolio will grow in size. So we're working on an integration with the Sui wallet, with their upcoming soon mainnet, hopefully at some point in the first half of this year, as they launch it. And also we're working at ways in which you can just move around between your extension. Again, the keys is yours. You govern your own key. The wallet is simply what generated the transaction request for it. So if down the line you wish to change the wallet that governs your signatures, you want to move to your API, you want to use them both at the same time, those are all things that can be possible with this product. And the other thing that as you come to use it, is going to be quite a step forward. Is we are adding a lot of data to the visualization of this your holding. So anything that you do with your keys managed by Qredo, you can see the balance of your tokens. Later on, you'll be able to see the applications you've been involved in, any open position you might have, NFTs, and so on. And this is the kind of feature that it is built for enterprises, but I would use it daily because it's just much better than a ledger or any other things that you need a bit of a clumsy way of authenticating to. So I'm quite excited about this one. This is a good way to give back to the community a product they can use on a day-to-day.
Yeah, and I know Wallet Connect's definitely been something that's been highly anticipated within the community. So really excited to see that one come out very soon. So very excited there. Cool. So moving on here. So our new policy engine enables policies to be assigned or managed at a workspace level for much more rigorous controls and risk management. Can you tell us about our new policy engine?
Yes. Without going in too much of the weeds, but I'll have to. It's just a natural tendency. The previous way of tackling policies was every time you create say a vault or a Web3 wallet, you would assign a policy or inherit a policy from the account or fund in which you were in. But say you wanted to then change that policy, and that's similar. You set up a similar policy on several vaults and Web3 wallets, but you now have to change all of them one by one, right? That wasn't really an ideal user experience. And particularly if you're looking at, as this adoption scales and there are more and more eyes that are looking at securing digital assets, perhaps the role of managing access control and the role of actually using it are going to be completely distinct. So we needed a way to separate essentially the management of policy to the actually application of a policy to a wallet, and that requires some changes on chain that unfortunately we cannot make a big fanfare on. But it's essentially a way to, instead of attaching that a policy in a wallet itself, we link to it, and therefore if you change a policy, you can be changing several wallets at the same time. That required a change on our chain, but also from a user experience standpoint, you'll see, and we'll get to it. And it's actually, I'm gonna spoil your next point because I'm too excited about it. But one of the first use cases of this new setup is we introduced something called admin policies, and this is kind of intuitive if you think about it. Say you want to set up. You have two different security environments. You have your phone, in which you want to just be fast and operational, but if you lose it, you don't want to go and recover with your seed phrase at some point because you might not want to handle with that. But you still need a way to recover your asset if you lose your keys. And one of the ways in which you could do that is to ensure that you've got an admin policy that controls your signing policy. And essentially what that does is splits the responsibility of ongoing signatures over that those transactions that you're securing with Qredo, and the management of what secures those transactions. An example of how you would use the management is, let's assume I lost my phone and my house burned down and I lost my seed phrase. Well, with an admin policy, I could simply rewrite the policy that governs the signatures of that key with my new phone, and then move on from it. The beauty of it is your phone can be used daily, right? You don't have to worry about it too much. This admin policy, you can potentially store it in something much more secure or completely away from your day-to-day operations, and use it as your first line of defense if you're recovering from a disaster. So this is one use case. I will use it myself this way as an individual. But if you're an enterprise, again, that split of responsibility is an important one. Signing is one thing, administering is another thing, and it's often done by two different governance structure within a company. So this is another way of representing that requirement.
Awesome, thanks. And I think when it comes to institutions as well, one of the big things that's blocking them from entering the space is always around security, because if you're investing large sums of money in a space that kind of has a bit of a reputation for being a little more risky, you want to have those extra safeguards up and put in place. So definitely really good for opening the doors to more institutional investment.
Yeah, and I guess having worked into one of these large organizations, I can already say with the primitives of what we're building on right now with cryptography, zero knowledge proof that we use on our phone back to the server and so on, it's already a much more secure and scalable way of getting that finer grain access control that an organization of the size of JP Morgan, like my previous employer, might need to even entertain entering the space. And it's hard work. It takes a lot. It's a lot of time and a lot of refinement. But I'm quite optimistic. I think the direction is the right one. But again, it's just you win with the details, and so we need to put this out. And we got another few features in store down the line. But we just want to hear what people think about this one.
Yeah, awesome. And I'm sure we'll get some good feedback there. Cool. So moving on here, I know we kind of already just touched on it for admin policies, but admin policies can now lock signing policies, as we just previously discussed. So serving as a fail-safe in case of loss of keys from approvers or for stricter rigor in policy changes. Did you want to add anything else here on what we can expect?
No, that was a beautiful summary.
Okay, perfect. Next, we have whitelists, which can now be managed at workspace level and applied to smart contract interactions on top of transfers and withdrawals. Can you give us some more details around whitelists?
Yes. And this is back to the same theme you brought up. So the idea of giving users more sort of a finer grain language in which they can express their needs and requirements when it comes to governing what can and cannot be done with their digital assets or keys. And what whitelist does in the current implementation, as you'll see, is allows you to set essentially an address book of addresses you can interact with from your vault. So very similar to what you have today. We just revamped the user experience for it. But we've also introduced a new feature that allows you to also add the same functionality to your Web3 wallets. So now you can start doing whitelisting of which smart contracts are you allowed to trade with. So imagine you're doing an unleveraged fund, and that fund can obviously not obtain leverage, and therefore you might want to single out some contracts that you want that specific fund to work with. And there is a settings now within our workspace, which is something we're testing at the moment, which you can say, hey, I have defined so well the boundaries of what can and cannot be done on my workspace that I want only that to be used. So that means only something you have whitelisted can be actually used from within Qredo. And this is important for particularly organizations that are a little bit more they are predictable in what they do. Say you're doing treasury management, you're unlikely to venture out on very sophisticated smart contracts out there. So you might want to limit the boundaries of what can be done within your treasury management workspace. And that's an example where you can toggle this global setting that states, right, this is the list of addresses I will interact with. And I think this will be a helpful user experience piece, but also it can help for those use cases where locking down to what is strictly necessary is quite a strong requirement.
Awesome, thanks, Gabe. Okay, so we're coming to the end of the first portion of the roadmap here. So before we hop into the next section, we are also working towards including Polygon, Avalanche, Phantom, Sue, and Stacks in our supported chains, including a new series of tokens supported in our vaults. Why should we be excited about this? And is there anything else we can expect here, just to briefly touch on this point?
Yeah, so this is back to what we open with. What Qredo is really good at is securing keys and assets. But keys have to sign somewhere and assets have to come from somewhere. And so we're always on a hunt for expanding the addressable market of what we can allow a user taking custody over or interacting with. And these chains have been flagged as incredibly important. Some of them are actually in nascent, and we're hoping to be there early to allow our users to take part safely from the get-go. And so our goal is to constantly expand what we can support, and you should expect more coming down the line as we progress.
Awesome, very exciting. Thank you, Gabe. Okay, so moving on, we're going to look at the next section of the roadmap, which focuses on features that we are currently developing or planning as part of an ongoing effort to enhance our product. So without further ado, let's just jump right in. So the first feature here is exchange accounts, or Qredo Glass. And this will allow you to deposit, transfer, and rebalance digital assets outside of Qredo's custody seamlessly. Can you tell me a bit more here?
Yes. If you've ever watched the news in the past 6 months, you know how counterparty risk has been, painfully made the headline for several months. And as a self-custody solution, what we want to do is to make sure that our users and assets of our users are safe. And we believe obviously that self-custody is the right way of doing it in our ecosystem. But there are many centralized venues that are incredible liquidity providers. They're incredible in the service they offer, and there's no dogmatic take on this. So it's a question of managing your risks and having clear return on investments on it. And integration with exchanges can take several shapes and form. But the integration that we're referring to here is one in which, if you're an investment firm or even a treasury management or even an individual that makes use of exchanges and has exchange accounts and wishes to manage assets from within Qredo that sits on those exchanges, with this feature you can now do that. And why is that important? Is there are a couple of things that are quite important there. Is if you're a bit of a prosumer or professional investor, most likely you have several venues in which you make your investments or exchanges on. And whenever you have several venues, there is no quite unified way in which you can get your assets. Number one, a view of your assets. Number two, a way to quickly move your assets around. There's always each exchange has a slightly different interface and a slightly different access control. And so whenever you need to rebalance assets, move them around, and ensure that your counterparty risk is spread correctly, it's always quite an operational challenge or burden to do that. With this feature, you'll be able to see them as part of your holdings within Qredo. Obviously, this will be part of the section that is out of custody, with a hint or a reminder that you might want to bring them back into custody if you're not actively getting serviced on. And being able to easily rebalance them across venues, or even withdraw when you're trying to repatriate capital. It's a good, a nice user experience and a nice, convenient operational feature if you want to manage your counterparty risk.
Okay, cool. So you can view your assets outside of Qredo, but they aren't protected by Qredo's DMPC. Exactly. But you can you're one click away from getting them back into your vaults. A click that you might want to make too.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, moving on here. So segregated asset vaults. This feature will allow you to manage and move digital assets within your own custody network easily. Can you quickly break this down for me?
Yes. So if you followed the asset vaults point that we made before, essentially what a vault is the ability for Qredo to take custody over your assets, and you governing specifically the asset regardless of the key that governs it. That means if you make a swap with someone else, you might end up with a Bitcoin that you didn't originally deposited, and if you want to make a withdrawal on a Bitcoin, you're entitled to do that by the protocol nature itself. This is an incredibly novel feature in the custody space. There's not other custodians that have something like this without using mutable databases or any shortcuts along the way. And what we heard from customers is that what they really wanted is the ability of having this exact feature for their own solution. So imagine being able to permission who can create wallets within these vaults. Imagine being able to scan assets as they come in. And imagine being able to manage all of this programmatically within from our API interface. And what might end up, exposed to the user is simply a nice user interface, a nice mobile app. But what happens under the hood is you're managing a full collateral network across several asset classes, all within Qredo. And what Segregated Asset Vault is essentially trying to do is to take what is great about the Qredo network and making it a nice little package that can be used by customers for their own collateral networks. So if you want to use, imagine you want to create your own neobank and support digital assets, you can easily do that without having to commingle assets with other users, or even having the ability for other users to move assets away without your control. So it's a nifty little interpretation of what a vault is, but really applied to the enterprise use cases that we've been hearing and been asked to solve for.
Okay, very cool. Thank you, Gabe. Okay, moving on. So with Qredo API 2.0, you will be able to, within Qredo Custody, build blockchain-based products or manage digital asset operations more efficiently. Can you tell us a bit about Qredo 2.0?
Yes.
Sorry, Qredo API.
Yes. So, what you'll see when the new Qredo is a nice new user interface, but what you won't see right away is we've really rebuilt the engine that powers all of it. And in doing that, we also redesigned and rethought our interfaces to expose to developers that wish to use Qredo programmatically. And as you said, the core use cases that our API products is going after is typically organizations that are looking to a custodial partner or custody middleware solution, so they can support digital asset and service those assets from within their solution. And so that means being able to do everything we can do, right? Being able to create assets, create new wallets, new users, new policies. Everything our app can do, you can do. And that's incredibly important for those use cases. But also stuff like creating a Web3 wallet. Imagine your bank now offering you the ability to interact with DeFi or Web3 directly from your app, mobile app from your bank. So all of what Qredo offers today, you should imagine almost peeling off the branding of it, and then exposing the moving pieces for organizations to build what they want from it.
Okay, awesome. So will that open up more of a developer community within Qredo, do you think?
Yes, definitely. That, among a few other things that are in store, will definitely boost the developer ecosystem around Qredo. But this is an incredible stepping stone, I guess, to take what we've done originally with our first version of the API and take it to the next level with these new concepts such as vaults, exchange accounts, and so on. So I think it's almost the next generation of what was already out there. But I think that the times are much more mature now for folks to support digital assets. So this is a good place to be if you're a custodian.
Awesome, super exciting. Thanks, Gabe. Okay, so moving on. So with our open custody engine, our signing agent will be complete. Sorry. All right, moving on. Thanks, Gabe. With our open custody engine, our signing agent will be complemented by an approval logic automation system that you will be able to configure through your user interface. Can you summarize the open custody engine for me? Sorry, that was a bit of a mouthful.
Yes. No, that's all right. I think we should come up with a simpler, catchy branding here. But in essence, we are a self-custody protocol. That means you define the rules that govern your asset, and you provide the evidence that clears the rules that you define ahead of time. And we heard loud and clear from customers that sometimes the entity that is providing this evidence is not a human being in front of a phone. And actually, at times it gets a bit tiring if it's a human being in front of a phone all the time approving transactions. And an approval is as strong as the review that it comes with. So if you do too many of them, you really dilute the significance of an approval. And so we worked since the early days on different names around this. Core client was the original name, and then signing agent. Essentially a server-side way in which you can essentially program your own custodial logic against it and work smoothly within our protocol. And the signing agent, which was released last year, open source, is essentially the implementation of this concept. You can now deploy on a Docker image, running if you want on an enclave, so one of these chips that are guarantees that no one, even AWS, cannot tamper with you, and then program that signing agent to do whatever you want it to do. You could say sign only if I don't know, the market is not tanking more than 20%, or sign only if the USD equivalent of this transaction is less than X. And those are a couple of the use cases we thought about. But as we were building it, we also built our own use cases and our own examples. And we ended up building a little template engine, essentially, that ended up in what we call now the open custody engine, which allows you now through a user interface to even specify these if statements yourself. So you'll be able to take a price feed of your choice, one that you trust, and say, based on this price feed, if the value of this transaction is above X, sign. If not, something else. And this is one of our step forwards to make programmatic signing much more mainstream, and in our sort of the broader roadmap that we often refer as the computational custody, which is where we think we should be headed, which is a way for you to define statically ahead of time the rules and logic that governs your assets, and then this is one step in that direction.
Very cool. Seems like that'll take a lot of fatigue out of people's day-to-day as well.
Definitely.
Awesome. Thanks, Gabe. Cool. So moving on here. So following the introduction of hierarchy with admin policy, we'll be able to see blind policies together using approval groups with and or operators to represent more sophisticated custodial requirements. Can you break this down for me? Yes, this is one of those features that if you're not in the weeds, it might sound a little bit less exciting than what it is. But right now, the way typically you would clear a transaction within Qredo is through signature aggregation. So you would define ahead of time as a set of signatures and a threshold, and then the aggregation of your proposal would be checked against the policy, and you go through it. What we ended up finding is that there are a lot of use cases that are not quite as straightforward as a threshold. So I mentioned one in which you might want to have a logic that runs before your signature, and that's the open custody engine. But what if that's not sufficient and you want to define ahead of time a collection of things to be true for the transaction to go through? So that could be, I want all of my compliance department and risk department. Or let's go on a wilder example. Let's assume you're dealing with a wallet that is governed by two organizations, and you want to say, every time I make a withdrawal, I want the other organization to accept it. And this would be an example where the other organization is an exchange, and they might need to approve withdrawals to ensure you're not removing collateral that is locked for trading. So these are sort of primitives that are quite important, but we're going to and they're actually on the chain today already, but we're going to expose them for user to use directly from the main platform as as we progress on the new Qredo. Awesome, very exciting. Thanks, Gabe. Okay, diving into Wallet Connect 2.0. So Wallet Connect 2.0 and multi-chain support. Using Qredo to secure our using Qredo to secure your Web3 transactions, even outside the EMV, with support of Cosmos, Polkadot, and other chains. This one's pretty obvious, but can you tell me more? This one is pretty obvious, but can you tell me about this and why this is a component of the roadmap and what we can expect?
Yes, so Wallet Connect is one of the most widely adopted standards when it comes to wallets. Wallet Connect 1.0 was an EVM only wallet. And there are many flavors of Wallet Connect if you've ever had a chance to use it. And we ended up adopting it late last year, and as the new Qredo comes out, it will be made available to everybody from within our Web3 wallet. But Wallet Connect team has been working on a new version, and that new version will be coming out soon. And they're planning to have sort of their peak adoption at some point towards the end of the first half of this year. And once that comes, and we will arrive as well, because we want to make sure we, as a new wallet type comes out, and as many new apps can support this Wallet Connect standards, we're also supporting it. The benefits, there are many benefits, and I can point you to the documentation that are outside Qredo itself on Wallet Connect 2.0. But one of the things that got me excited is multi-chain support. So the protocol is now not uniquely capable of dealing with EVM transactions, but is actually already expanding its reach among other chains such as Cosmos and so on. So that means that for free within this integration, we get smart contract interactions on many more networks that we already support just by adopting this new standard. So we're quite excited about it. Obviously, it's still in flux, but as soon as we're ready, and as soon as the market adopts it a bit more, I think will be a significant step.
Awesome, very exciting. Yeah, like I mentioned before, the community is really excited for Wallet Connect, so I think that'll be great to see in action. Okay, cool. Moving on. So another fairly obvious one here is the much awaited fiat on-ramp feature, which will allow you to build an on and off ramp for fiat directly into self-custody. How will this impact our users?
Yes, so fiat on-ramp will be probably quite impactful for any, even retail and enterprise alike. It's essentially a trusted way in which you can enter crypto from within custody. So that could be swapping dollar for stables straight from your custodial app without having to go past an exchange or something like that. And equally, potentially off-ramp down the line where you exit positions on fiat. And our take on fiat is that particularly as the use cases of treasury management, of more sophisticated investment management, there's often always a fiat leg involved at some point in your life cycle of a trade, right? And it starts by funding an account. Potentially, you might want to fund the gas of a new ecosystem you're entering in, or topping up your stable coins, something along those lines. But it can go as complex as managing an actual bank account directly from within custody, where you can exit and enter position on your stables from. And this is, we heard it from some of the user research we're doing on treasury management, where whenever salaries are still paid in dollars in some of digital native organization, and you need a way out from stablecoins to be able to do that. And being able to manage it in the same tool you manage everything else you do with is an incredibly important feature. But the first step is often the smaller one, but it's going to be the most impactful one. Hopefully, it's going to be just give you that on ramp to stables that you need to do anything you do after that.
That's awesome. That's super exciting. And like I said, that's one I think that the community's also been really excited about. And the reverse of that too, I know within this industry, especially, a lot of people get paid in crypto for either the work they do, BAs, developers, etc. Is that going to be helpful for those individuals as well?
Yes, we are actually thinking about features within the treasury management stream to facilitate, say, CFOs and operations people to make payments such as salaries or payouts, but nothing I can share yet.
Of course, perfect. Thanks, Gabe. All right, moving on. So reporting. So with reporting, you'll be able to generate rich reports and exports of your transactional data for audit and accounting purposes across the platform, and integration supported by Qredo. What is the draw here, and how is that going to benefit our user base?
Yes, so we've done, I'm going to tie back to this treasury management use case, but I think it's applicable to any of us that have done activity within Web3 and had to reconcile for tax purposes, or even personal sanity around what happened the last month. And reporting is an incredibly important aspect of any platform such as ours that offers the finality of a transaction, because we're ultimately anything that you do, so long as you do it from custody, goes through Qredo. So that's your one source of truth across chains, across solutions, across exchanges. Everything sort of falls back into Qredo, and that data is incredibly important if presented well. And reporting is essentially a way to give that data back in the hands of users the way they want it. So with the ability of filtering, tagging, generating reports, scheduling reports, and things of that sort, that allows you to really take control of your assets, not only once you trade it, but also after the fact, and after trades have already been made, and you might need to do some reporting on it.
Awesome, cool. And regarding like taxing purposes, will that be a benefit in that area?
Yeah, so our aim is to give you the transparent information as to when you enter a position, when you exited, across all of your custody vehicles. So that will definitely be handy there.
Okay, so we're moving on to the last question here, and then we're going to finish up. I know there's more on the roadmap, but I'm sure we'll touch on that in future. But we've kind of covered the main areas anyways. So let's finish up strong here. So we are also introducing the latest feature for users and validators needed for our validator program rollout to onboard new validators and reflect these changes in our upcoming tokenomics model. People are really interested in the validator program. So can you please share a little more on this?
Yes. So we will have more information to share at the end of this quarter, as we promised, and that's around the tokenomics and the details that surround it, the math around it. But what I can tell you on the program itself is it will have obviously two components. There's a user and there's a validator to be incentivized. And in order for both to take part of the security of the network, there's some feature that needs to be such as the ability of onboarding validator, viewing their operating metrics, the ability for user to contribute their stake to those validators, and the pool of revenue that generates, and all of those features, which are do not seem too big, are still a few things that we need to iron out. All of the mechanics on the chain has been already implemented stealthily as of last year. So right now we're just surfacing the user experience that we want to get right for validator and staking program to be successful.
Thank you so much, Gabe. We are hitting time here. I know there's a lot more to cover, but I think we got the main points. As always, it was an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for joining us, and thank you to our listeners. Be sure to keep in touch with Qredo for all updates and news, as you will always hear it here first. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot more on the roadmap to come, so keep your eyes peeled.